Okay, so hello all. This is our 52nd BC open discussion, and today I had two questions, and maybe we'll not get to both the questions today, but we'll be talking about customizing base app, which logically and for other reasons I don't approve of, but it seems that there is a need. And we'll understand how you do it, and if you have to do it. And there's a big if, and I don't know what those scenarios are because I have done approx 30 upgrades on Business Central, and I didn't had any need till now to modify the base app. But there can be scenarios which maybe I haven't seen till now. So we'll talk about it. And then if time permits, then we'll talk about upgrade code units in CAL, because that's again around a question that most of the people are seeing today, which is when they are planning to upgrade from CAL to AL, and that's where the knowledge of upgrade code unit comes super handy during that migration.
Exactly, especially if you're coming from a legacy version of Navision going to AL, then it would be useful.
Right. We in Archpoint have a utility as a proprietary tool to move from CAL to AL, and people keep on asking about that, but I cannot share that. But I'll give you a generic idea how upgrade code unit works, and then you can expand the way you want it on that. So maybe that we'll cover next week if time doesn't permit, because I want to spend good amount of time on how you customize base app if you have to, so that we all are clear if we need to that go to that path.
So are we done with interfaces?
That was all. As in, is there anything else, Sam, you would like to talk about? I can surely.
Used interfaces before, really. I've just because Microsoft has a couple of interfaces on the base app, so I've never used them.
Okay, so let me think of a scenario, and we'll try to extend one if we can.
Okay, cheers.
Okay. So this is normal. People who are new, which I seems no one is new right now, but if you are new, you go to this link every week. Normally it updates after this meeting, and you'll find a registration link for the next week meeting. If you are here and don't want to be, don't want to register every week and save that hassle, just drop your name and email in the chat, and I'll make you default attendee, as most of the people who are attending are default attendees here. So before we move to the questions, I am super excited right now to see what all gets selected in DynamicsCon. There's a huge list which is available, and we are still waiting for whose sessions get selected or not. But let's see what happens when this list becomes final, who all are presenting in DynamicsCon, and maybe that happens by next week. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so let's come back to what we were discussing, and let's move there. So this question came from one of my friend, and we were talking about it. So thought let's also talk about it here, so that we can go a little bit deep into it. So before we start, let's understand what are the minimum extension that you need to start your Business Central. So this is again one of the most common question, that what is the minimum set I need? And to tell you the truth, the minimum set you need is just a system application from Microsoft. So let's start building we'll see what happens when we add system application, at what point we need base application, and then how we customize base application if required. Okay, so here is my SQL database or SQL Server, and there's right now a database of BC18 and BC14 demo from Microsoft. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to and open my PowerShell, and I'm pretty sure all of you now know that I love PowerShell ISE. So I'll stick to that, and let me know at any point I have to zoom in something or not. I'll try my best to keep it big enough. So to create a new database, let's import the module from Business Central, and this is all on-prem. Okay, program files, Microsoft Business Central, 180 service.ps1. Okay, this loads some such set of commands, as we all know. Let's use one of the command for, we'll have to create a database. Let's do that. So there should be a new nav application database, and then there's a new nav database. Let's see what this is. This one is used to create a database from a backup file, which we don't have. So let's try this one, new nav application database. This creates a new Business Central application database. That's what we need. So let's do a database called demo. And I'll work with the default collation, and I want my files to be placed in my database 10. So I'll just copy that path here. And then my database server is localhost. This will create an empty database on my local server with named as demo. Let's run this. It's running here. It created a database. Super fast. Let's go back here. Let's refresh this, and this creates a demo database. Let's quickly look, because we are starting it from the beginning, what's inside it at this point. So at this point, there are some system tables which we need to identify it as a Business Central database. Now let's map it to a service so that we can see what happens when we try to run the web client for it. Okay, that's done. Let's restart this. Can we run the application with just this? That's the question, I guess, that we have. So let's try to do a localhost BC180. And right now it says that the version of the database is version 0, which is not supported with Business Central. Please contact your system administrator. So that means without no apps, we cannot even do anything on our database. So first, let's change the license, because anything that we are going to do will require a license. Import nav server license, and let me see where my license is. Okay, and then the server instance. Let's restart this. Okay, and let's restart the service. So at this point, I can start working on publishing the system app, which seems to be the minimum requirement of starting my Business Central. So here I have Business Central 18.2, and this is what is installed on my machine. Inside this, you will find a folder called application. Inside this, there is a system application, which is this, and source. And let me copy path for the extension and try to publish nav app. I'll do it with the server instance. There is a path. This is the path. Server instance is BC180. And just to make sure, I'll copy this because I'll have to run it again and again. And I'll run this command, which will publish my system app. And it says something. It says is not an extension. Oh, sorry, I gave the wrong file. Instead of this, I want this. Copy. And let's remove this line. Paste this and run the single line. Now this should publish my system app in my environment. And then while it is doing it, let me start working on the second command, which is, oh, it's done. Sync that nav app which is system application on my server instance BC180. And here is an error. It says it cannot synchronize because the tenant is not synchronized, and you first need to synchronize your tenant. Okay, so let's do sync nav tenant. That's done. And let's run the sync nav app. And paste it here also in the meantime. We're doing it for other apps also. Okay, sync is done. Now next is my install. And I'll install my system app, which is getting installed. Okay, so that's done. Let's quickly have a look on what happens now when we try to refresh our Business Central environment. Now it says that there is no company. Sorry. No companies in the database. So that means we'll have to create a company. So let's try to create a new company. And we'll call it as test. The company is ready. So let's try to refresh this. Okay, so now I can see something. It doesn't display me the application, but I can look for things like extension management and all. You can see that I have a system application. But now let's go back to our SQL Server and see what actually gets added once we publish the system application. So if I refresh sets of tables that I have, I'll see there are new tables got added with this GUID, and that is for the system ID. So all these tables are part of the system application, which we are seeing here. All these emails and all. Now it's also attached to the company, because now there is a company also. So this is what the system application is required for, which is the minimum application to start your business center. But now all our business logic is relying on another app, which we normally call as base app. And that's what we are trying to customize also at the same time. So the next app that we need is the base application, which contain most of our business logic that we need to run the application. So now let's go back to the folder again, the product folder. And when I come on application, I see this base application. In the base application, there is source. And if it's a Microsoft extension, which is allowed for partners to modify. I don't know how long that will be possible. There's no timelines right now. We'll also get a source for it. This is the app file and this is the source file, which is where the code is. So you can copy this and let me put it in my working folder here. You can extract it. So once it gets extracted, this is all the source code from the base Microsoft W1 code. Let's try to open this in VS Code. Which is this. As soon as you do this, every app when it gets built and added in your product DVD from Microsoft, there is no launch.json, which doesn't talk about where it need to connect to fetch the symbols from. And why we need symbols is because when you come here on your app.json, our base app has a dependency on the system application, which we just published in our environment. So to even compile this, we will need symbols for the system application so that we can compile this, and also if required we can build it. So let's go ahead and try to download the symbols. If I try to do download symbols, give me an error because there is no launch file, and then it'll ask you to create that launch file. It'll say own server, whatever your server is, whatever your service is. And if you are using a custom code for your service, which I'm not, but I'll just walk you through that also. If there is a custom code that you're using on your service, then make sure that you assign this port in your config. Mine is default, 7049 is a default port, so I don't have to, but otherwise you'll have to do a port which by default is 7049. Now we'll try to download the symbols for the system app that we need. Oh, sorry, I should have done this Windows. Okay. Let's download symbol. So now the symbols are downloaded, and you can see it here on AL package that there is some application symbol and some system symbols which are already downloaded. Now at this point, we would have thought that because this is a Microsoft app, this will compile and I should be good to go. But if you see, there are so many errors right now, which is it should go somewhere around 5-7K or 10K, oh, 11, 14K. So right now there are problems. Let's try to reload it. Maybe some of them gets fixed with the symbols that we just downloaded. Okay, let's see what happens now. Well, let's try to build this, and if there are problems, it'll tell us. I just did Control Shift B, which is trying to compile this app to see is it able to publish it or not. But I'm already started seeing some warnings and error in my code, and now it says that I have issues with some .NET component that are missing. Before we start fixing this, one very important thing that you need to note if you go this route, which I would not prefer that you go, is go to your app.json and make sure that you change the version of this app, and only change the version. I'll increment it, let's say by 1 or 2, just to make sure it is different than actual Microsoft. Don't change the name of the app. And the reason is because it is or it will be referred by other app which you may install. So like if you install an ISV app during while working with your customer, it will always look for an application which name starts with base application. So don't change the name, that's for sure. Don't even touch that. If you have to change, just to make it unique, change the version of that app so that it becomes different than the base Microsoft app. But never change the name, because otherwise all your extensions will have problems that you will deploy later in the game. Now coming back to our problems that we saw, and most of them are around some .NET components which are missing. And there's a reasoning behind it, because there are some .NET components which are used by Microsoft, at least for on-prem, which needs references from your local installation. And the way you do it is you add the details of those extensions of those .NET component into your setting.json, if I'm not wrong. So let's do Control Shift P and try to get the settings. And let's open workspace setting. So this is a setting file that gets added into a VS Code. And here we'll have to add al.assembly probing path. It is a path where you want system to look for these .NET references. You'll at least have to do the program files one. I guess C program files. No, not this one. Let me type in. I'll have to do a double slash, I guess. Okay. And then on Microsoft Dynamics 365, it is not picking. Dynamics 3. Okay. Let me copy it, the path from the service path into it, which is this. So this becomes my service path because there are in this path there is a folder for where your assemblies or .NET components are stored. And let me open this to show you. Go to C program files, x86. Microsoft is a central 180. Oh, sorry. Yes. So okay, sorry. C program files because I didn't want to go to x86. In this file, you have folder. You have this add-ins where there are different .NET components and DLLs which are available. So that refers to that folder. And just to make sure that it doesn't lose the focus of if there is something outside there or in the role tailor client, Microsoft also recommend to add this path, which is where your RTC used to happen in the past. And then it also requests you to add a reference of the .NET framework that is installed on your machine, which will be like this. And this will remain as it is for any version that you're working for based on operating system and all. And then the last is where the PowerShell assemblies are placed. And then one more was there. Let me check what Microsoft says about it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there are two more. And I'll share the link in the URL where Microsoft talks about it. So these are the paths based on which the base app will be able to get references of all the DLLs that are being used by the base Microsoft application. Once you have set this, let's reload. And now let's try to build this to see is it working or not. Before you start customizing, you need to make sure that you are able to compile and generate the standard Microsoft app. So right now it's trying to compile this. And let's see what happens. There might be some warnings, and warnings are okay because of the features that are being removed and all. Yes, these all are okay because these are warnings for objects where there is already a feature tag added that they are going to be removed in future. Compilation ended. Let's see, does it generate the app or not? Oh, the package is created. So now if you look at on your this folder and try to filter this out with app files, you'll see that there is a base application available. At this point, you are good to start your customs if you have to do. But now let's understand what you should do in a situation where you have to do it. I thought about it because let's put it this way. If you have a table in your customization that you're doing, and if it has some references on, let's say, sales post, that you need reference of that table, and you thought that I'll keep the table in my extension, but I'll write my code in code unit 80 because I cannot get the event there, then that is not possible because the table that you are trying to refer in code unit 80 should either exist in the same extension, which means base extension, or it should be in an extension which your base extension refers to. It's a system application. It cannot be on a child extension. Is that statement clear, or should I repeat it?
Yeah, you should probably repeat that.
Okay. So let's, and I didn't plan for this, but let's think about it. If there is a table, let me increase the font here. If there's a table called my test data, which right now is a custom table, let's say placed at number 50,000. Logically, this will go into, let's say the partner is ABC, in ABC custom extension. Logically, it will go there. And the extension where it is, it has a dependency with base app. All extensions have dependencies with base app, or most of the application that you are writing right now will always depend on the base app. You can't write a custom application unless you are writing something for system. You need to have a dependency on the base app, which is inherited automatically, and you get the symbols whenever you create an app of the base app in this folder, and we'll see it after a while. Now, if there is a code in your code unit 80 or somewhere else, which is trying to refer to this table called my test data. When I try to write that code, and let's assume the scenario that I don't find a event or a place where I can write the code that requires to solve the business problem. So if you want to do something like if my test data dot get document type from sales order and document number and then some number code, which then do something, and maybe this is just the code in your code unit, then post additional item line, right? This is what you want to do, and you don't find a place or an event in code unit 80 where you can do this. Now, because this table is not part of the base app, system will not understand references to this table. So then you will also have to move this table from your custom extension back to the base extension or to a parent extension which base is referring to. Is that clear now?
So basically, I'll be creating my test data again table.
Yeah, you'll have to remove it from your extension and you'll have to put it into the base application if you want to refer to that table.
The base application I just created, the one you've incremented with 2.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and if you think it from a project perspective, these references then go into recursive mode, that maybe my test table needs, or my test data needs a table called my test setup. There is some code which is referring to this table, and my test setup needs another reference. So it keeps on going recursive. So before you try to modify the base Microsoft app, think about all these scenarios, because these tables and these references can exist outside, but because you didn't think about it before modifying the base app, you'll have to drag them back to the base app, which is logically not correct. So how you do it in those scenarios? So let's think about code unit 80, which is Salesforce. So let's find, it's a big app, so it'll be hard to find objects, but let me try if I can. I don't. Okay, so let me look for it. I can slow down. Okay, PQRS and sales KLMNOP somewhere. Here. Okay, here. So let's assume that you need to write this code somewhere, let's say here, let's assume, and there is no event that can provide you what you want. So the first thing that I would suggest, and I can be completely wrong, think about it because I have never done it, but based on what I know about the product, what I would suggest is go to this folder where this file is, which is this. Cut this file from here create a folder of whatever the customer name is, let's say ABC Marts, and paste it inside this. The reason is it doesn't matter where the file is until unless it's placed in the app itself. So if it is inside this folder, it doesn't matter, but it will give you a flexibility to understand what objects you have modified. It does, the system does track it on a file. Let me see if I see that file yet, rat.json, which tells you where the modifications are, but it's hard in a extension big like this to identify where you have changed things. So I'll place it inside here so that I know that all the objects that I'm going to modify as a partner are placed in a separate folder, and make my life easier in case of my customer request a cumulative update or an upgrade. So I know how many files I have to merge in manually. Make sense? So let's assume here you need that code. So instead of writing that code that you want, write your publisher here. Define a publisher for you so that you can utilize it again in your customer. So instead of writing or dumping all that code here, what I'll do is I'll say, this is my ABC mods. I hate to do this in new versions, but go back to the CAL style. And let's write an event here. And I'm trying to write on before, or let's say on after, adjust final web 100%. And I want to pass them sales line global, which is a reference that I need to achieve what I want, or I also need sales header or any other parameter that you need. Now 10 sales line global will be a variable of sales line, and this is sales header. So let's place them in order. I'll need these two event, oh sorry, these two symbol references, record references. I'll come down here on this object, and somewhere here I'll do a, okay, come on. This is a big file, so it'll take some time. Think about it. Okay. The event publisher, which is an integration event, and you can define these integration events like this, and then you need to name your event, which is the name of your function, and then pass if you want it with reference. So you can say sales header of record sales header. And then if you also want the sales line, you can say 10 sales line of record sales line. It's temporary, you can set it temporary, and then begin end. Now what you are trying to do with this is you are trying to reduce, still trying to reduce your footprints in the base app. Rather than dumping all the code that you wanted because you didn't find the right event, which again I'm saying that's still a situation that I haven't seen, but assuming that that's a situation that you will end up reaching, you should define the events that you need to achieve what you want to do. Right? If let's suppose in this scenario, you don't want, if there is a scenario like this where it says if this is get, then don't run these two lines. Let's assume that's a scenario. You should also in that case pass a boolean called handled. Is handled. You go back down there and we'll also have to pass at least this one as a reference so that we get its value back. And let's go back here, and then just what we used to do in the past. I'll take you these two lines saying it's in standard code and comment this out, and then say if is handled, then if not handled, oh sorry, yes, if not handled, then so instead of changing the code, I'm just trying to handle it with least amount of customs or footprints on the base object. Big file to take example of. I should have find something else, but let's get this compiled. So now what will happen is once I publish this base app, this reference will be available for me. This event will be available for me in my custom app to do what I want it to do. Right? And at the same time, I would request if you see that there is a reason of this event should exist in the base code. It's not reading, it's then and begin. Sure. Then also request it to Microsoft that we need an event like this in the base app, and they will make sure that in the next big release that comes in the product. You can do all kind of customization. It's similar to how we used to have NAV code with us. It's similar to that, this approach. Once you have received this, let me copy this so that we can see it once we publish this. That can we get this reference or not? It's in code unit 80. So now I have done what I wanted, and you might end up doing 5-10 objects. If you place all of them in this folder, in one of the folder, that'll make it easier for you for next cumulative update or major update where you have to do things as manual merge and then give them the next version or next cumulative update that they need. Do you want any other examples at this point? As in, want to add some fields on customer table or something like that? I can do that before I build this. Or is this sufficient before we move ahead? Yeah, Jignesh, you are saying something?
No, I think it is sufficient.
Okay. So let's hope that this is what you guys wanted. Let's assume. And now we'll again try to build our app. We'll do Control-Shift-B. This should build your custom base app. Okay, let's see what happens. And store it at this table. Removal. Okay, let's come down. Compilation ended. And let's see if it gives me the app or not. Okay, it's taking a good amount of time to build the app. It should actually build the app. It's done. So what I would suggest is, as you're working on the project that you're working on, where you think you might need to modify the base app for some reasons, or any other app which is for which the source is available for you, mark those changes and do them at the same time, because if you're trying to modify the base app, it can take its own time to give you to build and to publish and things like that. So it doesn't happen rapidly. It'll take some time to do things. Okay, so the package is created, and let's go back to our folder, and let's see where our app is. So this is the app which is just generated at 9 p.m. Let's copy this, the path of this, and let's go back to our PowerShell. In this time, I'm trying to change this path to be the path that I need. Let's copy this. This is my 24492 app. And so let's publish this. Okay, you cannot publish an app which is not code signed. Okay, so let's do skip verification. Okay, now it says the runtime version of the extension is currently set to 7.2. The runtime version must be set to 7.1 or earlier. Okay, so let's see this. It says on app.json there's a runtime version which is set incorrectly, and I don't see that. Okay, so that means it's defaulting it to the latest when it is not specified. And Microsoft will do it because it makes sense to link runtime to the latest version, which at this point is 7.2. And let's see what the options are. So the options are based on different versions. So it is not always for the major releases, but if you'll see 4.0 was for 2019 release wave 2, but then there was a 4.1 for 15.1, 4.2 for 15.2, 4.3, 4.4, and then started directly 5. So right now it's pointing to 7.2, which is the latest, which is for 18.3. And the installation that I have on my local is 18.2. So you'll have to attach it to the right runtime based on whatever application you're working on. Let's set this up and let's try to publish. Oh, sorry. Let's try to build it again. Anytime you change it, as we know, in your application, you'll have to generate the new app for based on your changes to adapt those changes that you have made in any of these files. So let's see what happens. Okay, so the compilation started. And that's why the base app changes are kind of time consuming, because it's one of the biggest app right now in Business Central. And any kind of changes that you'll do will take some time to compile and build. So it's important that you park all those changes and do it together if you have to go that route, because it will take time to make a small change also, and the build will take its own time. So instead of doing them together as in case by case, if you think that there are 5 situations which you can't handle without modifying the base app, park them so that you can do at the later stage when you have everything that you know, and you can build your new apps according to it. Okay, and we have our ABC mod here, our integration event here. Okay, so the package is ready. Let's try to publish this. The path will remain same, and it seems to be working. Let's wait for a while the publish runs. Now the publish will take time, but in the meantime, I'll update these commands so that it can synchronize my base app and it can also install my base app. Now, while this is happening, You might have noticed I talked about that there are three main extensions that we talk about, and the third one that you often see in either on upgrade documents or when developers are talking about it. The third major one that we are seeing now is called application. And we'll understand why there is an application and a system application and a base application once we publish this. So this is the other reason that you should park your changes and do it together at the end, because it'll take again some time to publish it and also synchronize and install it, because it is one of the biggest app in Business Central environment. Okay, let's see. It should be done any moment now. Let's see what's happening on the SQL server while we are doing this. And maybe it is locked right now. Not let us see anything. Let me try to refresh this. Okay, I was just trying to publish this, so I will not add any tables on SQL at this point. I'll try to sync it now. Now it is trying to synchronize these objects which are part of the base application against whatever is available in the system, which is system app at this moment. And if that causes any destructive scenarios, then it will fail, otherwise it will pass. Even at the sync, I don't think we'll see any new tables getting added into our environment. That should remain as it is unless we install this. Oh no, as the sync is happening, you're seeing these tables are getting into the system. So all the base Microsoft tables from the base applications are now available in my SQL database. And the sync is complete. So now let's try to install this, which will install this extension, and then we'll be able to utilize it on our client. Okay, so now we have all the tables. Once this gets installed, we'll be able to refresh our web client instance that we had, or it'll refresh now, but we'll be able to see our pages getting loaded here, and our role center will get loaded and things like that as it gets published. Okay. There is a lot happens when you install an app, any code unit in your base app or in any other app. If there is an install code unit, that runs behind the scene, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to see some instances of it right now if we see on activity monitor what's happening. These two are happening on the demo database, and one of them is published app and one of them is user code. Okay. Okay, so the install is completed. Let's go back to our client. Let's refresh this. And let's go back to our home page. Oh. So now we can see all these things available to us as they were. I don't have the setups done yet. It's an empty database. So, okay, let me try to refresh this again, see if it defaulted to a profile or not. Okay, it has defaulted to a profile, which is the sales order processor, the default profile. And in my extension management, I'll be able to see my system and the base custom base app published. Now let's talk about the third one, which is application and why it is important. So people who started their AL journey back in NAV 14 or BC 14 or BC 15, in the older days when you are building an app, a custom app, there used to have a dependency with the system application to fetch some references from the system application, and there was a dependency to the base application for every pertinent extension that you build. And we have just seen that the base application is dependent on system application. But with Business Central 16 and higher, you don't have to explicitly specify the dependency with the system and the base application. It happens automatically, and the magic behind it is because Microsoft have built an application extension which automatically has a dependency with the system and the base application. So if you go back to your product DVD, which is not here, let me find the other folder. It's also not here. Okay, where it is? Okay, here it is. No. Within softwares, okay, application setup. If you see in this or in any most of the versions, all the versions before BC 15, there is an application extension which also there is a source available for you, but it has no code. It just have this app.json in it. When you open that app.json from your application, you see that the app.json has a dependency to the system application and to the base application. So what happens with this application extension is when you are writing your pertinent extension, you don't have to come and define these dependency manually. It is automatically done based on a property called application. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? And then, otherwise, that will give you an example if it doesn't.
Example, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let's think of, should I close this? No, let me open one more VS Code. Okay, new VS Code. Okay, so now let's assume I want to create an extension on the environment which I just showed you or which we just built. We just have these two apps, right? So if I try to do a Control-Shift-P, AL go, project 5 on 2021 release wave 1, and then on server, and here I say localhost, which we also did in the base app, and DC 180, and change this to be Windows. Now technically speaking, this should download all my symbols at this point when I do download symbols. So if I do a Control-Shift-P download symbols, it gives me an error. And the error seems a little bit irrelevant, but let's read about it, what it says. It says, I'm trying to download these symbols, and I cannot do this because either the correct server name is not provided, the application version is not correct, the dependencies are not correct. Let's go back to app.json and try to zoom this in a little bit. Okay, let me zoom this in. All right. So what's in this app.json? It says I'm an app pertinent extension which would refer to no one, which will only refer to something called as application 18.0. And this application reference is actually reference to this application extension. Now, is this mandatory? No. If you are happy to go back to the older days of BC 15 and specify these two dependencies manually on all your pertinent extension. So I can still go ahead and do this. And as soon as I do this and try to download my symbol, and remove the application property, I guess, so that there's no reference to this. It still gives me an error. What is this now? And case on dependencies are not set correctly. I have a reference to the base and the system and all, and I should be actually able to do things which I want. It will understand the customer list or any other table that you want. But now maybe it's an error. Earlier it was not in the older versions of Business Central. To replace this, to have a specific dependency, like there is a dependency on 18.2, 18.2. Tomorrow, if your customer upgrades to 19.0, the dependencies will still be lying to 18.2, which is not wrong, which is okay, because this is the minimum version of the extension that you need. But it was causing some problems in some scenarios. So what Microsoft did is they added a new property for app, or application was already there, but they tied this property to an extension that you can build, and with that you can remove these dependencies to the base apps and also remove these files, that you can see what happens when you do that. And because there is an application property attached to 18, when you try to download symbol, system will look for an extension called application, and if it is found, it will automatically download references of both the dependency that application have, which is this. So that's the reason Microsoft created a kind of a blanket on top of base and system application, so that you don't have to manually specify these dependency on each extension that you're building for downloading symbols. So the third thing that you need when you are going this route is the Microsoft application to be published, which is a very small extension because it just contains one JSON file for the reference. So when I do this, I'll publish this, and this is application. So I can come here, move the reference, add the reference of application. Also this, then I try to sync this, and I try to install this. So once this is done, come back to my environment, I refresh this page, and I see now I have an application. So now if I go back to my VS Code, there are no symbols at this point, and I don't have any specified dependencies at this point. System will understand that I need to download the symbols from the application, base application system in this. Now this application symbol is a collection of your base and system application. As we are seeing here, because it has a dependency to these two applications. So if you install your application, the propagated dependencies will also get installed when you are trying to build your extension. As we are super near to our session time, let me just try to find that event which we added into the base app on code unit 80. So if I do 80 code unit, let's do 50100, and let's try to add an event subscriber. Code unit reference is sales post, and let me set these first. False, no element name, and on some event, and the event that we wanted is on after adjust final with 100%. Do you see that? Okay. Oh, that's on the top for some reason. Okay. Let's try what things I have here. I have a sales header, I have a temp sales line, and I also have an is handled boolean. Now I can, without modifying or without having huge footprints on the base app, I'll be able to do things that I want. And at the same time, as I said earlier, you should also request Microsoft if you think this scenario is not covered by Microsoft or a localized ISV that you're working with. Reach out to them and tell them we need this event. If they can't deliver you it on time, then I understand that you have to go to the route of modifying the base app. But if you have to do it, try to do it with minimum footprint on the base app. Does that make sense, guys?
Well, what do you mean by minimum footprint on the base app? By creating an extension, you mean?
Yeah, because if you actually write your actual code there, then you are actually bringing some of your custom objects also, or custom fields in this table into the base app, which is
So dialing down the footprint on the base app is actually going through customizing the base app rather than going with an extension.
yes. But now let's think about it, that we have customized this on 18.2. Let's assume for this, for a customer, right? Tomorrow, if there is a problem from Microsoft, there's a bug in the DVD, in the product that we all see all the time, and you request it to Microsoft. Microsoft will deliver it in the next cumulative update, not as a hotfix, but as a cumulative update. And to fix that issue, you will have to repeat and merge the same thing, right?
Say that you've customized the base app, then a couple of months later, Microsoft has acknowledged the missing event and updated that with the cumulative update. Would that cause a problem?
Right. If they have addressed that what your request was, you can still update the base app with the Microsoft replaced one. Because if the events that you need are available, then the build that is there for the Microsoft app will be incrementing anytime Microsoft publishes their app, right? We are right now.
The problem, sir, I've just updated the base app with all my my customizations that I have imported. So if I get to replace with the new Microsoft base app, I will have to update it with my customizations, the extensions, if you will, the tables and everything.
That's what I'm saying, that if you have a less footprint on the base app, that will help you in your next cumulative update. So just to modify or just to manually merge those 5 or 10 objects or whatever that is, which is in your ABC folder, right? Okay. In this case, so I know that I just have to compare and merge this file in this case. If I go to this route, then I'll actually have to do how we used to do things in past, right? Compare it based on a comparison tool and then merge it into the new base app. If the event that you needed is added by Microsoft, let's assume then in 18.3 Microsoft understand that yes, this is a business requirement and we should add this, and I just have this event as a custom in my base app, right? In that scenario, I can actually go ahead and upgrade them to the standard Microsoft base app, because now the event that I needed is available. So I don't need a custom base app.
Okay.
Because more you modify the base app, you can multiply it to that many times. If to modify base app, it takes, let's say, 10 hours to achieve what you wanted for your customer. Multiply that to the point that they want to be in Business Central, because you will have to merge that code base anytime they want either a minor hotfix or a major hotfix. And the life of the product now is 1.5 years. So eventually everybody will have to upgrade in 1.5 years. So if there is a customer who have no need of minor cumulative update, even then they'll have to upgrade after 1.5 years to be in the mainstream support version. right? So you will be doing the same mods in the, let's say, in version 21 or version 20 when their next upgrade comes. So the lesser the customs that you have in the base app, it's better for your next upgrade or cumulative update if there is a need for that. Does that make sense?
What would you confirm that you could update the base app with an extension?
Sorry?
Can you update the base app with an extension without going through what you did today? Just an extension and update a base app.
You cannot.
You cannot do. Okay.
You cannot modify the base app from an extension, right? You'll have to do it in the base app if you have to do it.
Okay.
Okay. I think this will be useful in a scenario. As I said, I haven't seen it till now, but I'm not someone who does all the things all the time. I'm pretty sure you will have scenarios. And Sandeep sir, you have something?
What to do with buggy Indian localization? Should we go ahead?
You should always. So let's not think it as bugging in localization. Let's assume it's an ISV where there is a problem, right? Microsoft is making the code available for us, but you can think of any ISV that you work with today. If there is a problem there, what we can do? We can't do anything other than reporting it to them, because ISVs are not giving you your source code. That's not happening. So if that's not happening, the only route is to replicate the scenario and to provide it to ISV and get it fixed from them. Now I'll apply the same rule to Microsoft, even they are exposing the app to partners, because there will be frequent updates on that ISV or the Microsoft localization extension that you're working with, because you or me are not the only partner developers who are working on for them. There's so many, and some people will report issues and they will fix them in the product. So the new model is not to fix by yourself, because if you start fixing that route, then it'll be a nightmare next time when there is an update.
Difficult choice.
Yeah, but think about it. If Microsoft would have taken the same approach which ISVs are taking at this point, our hands are still tied, right? So I think it from that perspective also, that if there is no source code for me, and there are so many ISVs which don't provide source code even to partners, then what we do, we just reach out to them, replicate the scenario, and tell them to fix it.
Or to bypass it.
Sorry?
Or bypass it.
How would you bypass it?
Probably through some table level validation where the bugs are there, or bypassing events. Only events are the possibilities.
Right.
Where you
If
can.
there is an event where like we have done here, right? And there are so many events like this where there is an is handled pattern, as you're seeing.
Yes.
And anytime there is an is handled pattern in any of the event that you are subscribing to, it always skips the rest of the code after that. So if it is handled, then it exits from this function. So that means this code segment will not run. And there are so many like this in the base app. And that's the only scenario where you can skip certain things.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Jignesh, you have something?
Yes, not related to that. It is something else. Can we do?
Okay, let's wait for a while. Let me take questions on this, and then we can stick to the call. That's not a problem. Rishikesh, you have something related to this?
No, sir, I'm
Saurabh,
not
do you-
related to this. I have some other.
Okay, so let's wait, Rishikesh. Let's wait.
Yeah, no issue. No issue.
Yes, Vijay.
Saurabh, do you have any customer? Means your company have any customer which using this model? to modify
No.
the base?
We never. So we, even in upgrades, even if we reach to a point where there is no way to update or upgrade that code, we take time to sit with customer and decide what they want. Because let's think about it from a development perspective. If there is a development request that we would have received today, we would have achieved it based on the events that are available. It was not a wrong code written 10 years ago for one of our customers. It was surely a right code back then, written by a developer. But there are ways to tweak the business process in a better way rather than trying to fit the same code in the same way as it was. And Archpoint doesn't allow any developer to ever touch the base app. I just learned it last week because there were 5 or 6 questions in my email only talking about how to modify base app. But I haven't learned it till now because we don't support this.
Well, did they give a reason for that?
Yeah, like Sandeep sir was saying that if there is an issue in one of the app that they can't find, and I guess it, like for India, Business Central is already released, but once the upgrade routine is available, there will be more customer going that route. But I see that at that point there will be more things that we don't see in the base app. There will be things which are not available in the base app at that point because the product is new in this region. And if you think it from a, let's say, a North America version or an Australia version where the Business Center was released in the first releases, the events got added, majority of the events got added somewhere in Business Central 16. 14 and 15 were where partners were requesting events to Microsoft, and so it took at least 2 years to make it a a set of events which can be utilized by partner. It didn't happen on the day one. And if you go back when Microsoft started it, they started this eventing thing in NAV 2016. And there were quite a few partners, even Archpoint. I did submit some events back then, which were required in the product in NAV 2016. And for India, it was super late. The product was super late, and I'm assuming that it'll take a year or two, or at least maybe 3, to settle down with the events that are required to achieve the box. And I don't know about other reasons, but I'm pretty sure things are getting settled in as the product is moving ahead. Okay, anything else then, Rishikesh
Then,
and
Saurabh,
Vignesh? Yeah.
What you suggest, if there is a scenario where we need to modify the base app, okay, yeah, we will try to make the changes. You say that the footprint as less as a, we will have a separate object. So in the future, will there be any issue related to any upgrade or anything?
It'll be a manual merge every time there is an update, right? That
Yeah,
the customer
that's
needs.
the only thing. That's the only thing.
That's the only thing that you need to take care of. Because the code, the app that you receive is just a collection of those code segment, and Microsoft don't have an end date as of today that when they stop supporting providing the source code for the base and the system apps. As of today, there is no end date, and I don't know when that will be. But till then, there is no problems. As in, you can again do a merge and bring your customs in if required.
Saurabh, this is only possible in on-prem, not on SaaS.
Yeah, this is only on-prem, never on SaaS. SaaS will always have the Microsoft app, always.
Exactly. Off limits. Off limits. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if there is nothing on this, then we will meet next week, and I'll stay back to answer Rishikesh and Jignesh's question for a while. So Jignesh, you want to start?
Yes. I have one on-premise database BC18. I have checked so many things. When I use the OData URL, OData v4, that it is not giving me on a browser that is like customers, items, and vendors, location, shipment method. So for all that, it is giving a HTTP 400 error. And when I check the event log, it is giving an error like hexadecimal character is there. Somehow I have created a new company that doesn't have any data, and also check in that, but it is still giving the error. Hexadecimal value in an invalid character, but I could not find that where that is the issue.
Can you send me the error maybe on an email? I'll have to like what it is saying. Okay, and maybe the hexadecimal is not in the data that you are looking for. Is it on the base pages that you're trying to expose as data?
Yes, I'm trying to expose location, list page, customer.
Are there any ISV/mods on those pages?
I think no. I think it is a base database. But
Can you try the same
Saurabh,
steps on a Cronus? Go ahead.
if I
Yes, sir.
remember it correctly, this is not related to any of these things. I'm trying, but I'm can't remind. I faced this problem some 5-7 days ago, but I don't remember the resolution. It was either because of license or something, but not because of any technical reason.
Oh. So yeah, still Jignesh, if you want to send me the error, I'll have a look because I haven't seen it recently, and maybe it's a license issue, and that's why I haven't seen it. But if you want to send it to me, I'll surely have a look. That's not a problem. Okay. And the other thing that
chat right now, or just for I will send you the email.
yeah, the other thing that I do normally is there is I forgot the extension name. There is a extension which gives you more detail as a browser extension to check your web services. Let me see if I find it. But yeah, you can in the meantime you can type it.
Whistler.
Yeah, Whistler. Did you try with Whistler?
Yeah, I tried, and it is in a specific like Google Chrome. It is every time it is giving a same error that HTTP 400. Might be I will check with license, as Sandeep said.
Okay. Yeah. Is in the invalid character line 77 position 24. The other reason that I'm thinking of, and this sometimes happens as an I haven't seen it in Business Central, but in the CAL when your field name that surely will be a custom field because base doesn't do that, then sometimes you get that default less than greater than sign, right? That also causes some problem with the OData URLs, technically speaking. I've seen it in nav, I haven't seen it in Business Central recently. So try it on a Cronus environment first. Also, anything that you end up in this Business Central world, you should always try the similar behavior always on a Cronus environment.
Yeah, you're right.
Because anything that Microsoft will accept will be if you can replicate that problem on a Cronus environment. So even to create a ticket with Microsoft, you need to make sure that it is happening on a Cronus environment and always keep a Cronus environment on customer servers. Because any issue that they are facing should be replicatable on the Cronus environment for Microsoft support. I always keep it on all our customers.
Yes, yes.
This is the new era, as in people who came from NAB, we have this habit to debug things and try to fix it. But in the Business Central era, you should actually try to find out the owner of that extension where the problem is, and then replicate that on a Cronus environment with just their extension and send it back to them. That's the new era. There's no point if you debug it and find it out that, oh, here in the base app, in this code unit, this line is causing problem. You might be able to help Microsoft with quickly fixing it, but that's it. You can't fix it yourself.
A small question around this point. Is the URL have some sort of filters?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Filters.
Is a URL default or filters?
I remember the problem was coming because I was using API web page in Postman and my filter syntax was wrong. That created that problem.
They are using a credential type is username, and they are creating a thumbprint and set on the service, and so I also set the web client base URL on the service. This is the property they have set.
And then if they are using the nav username, did they have enabled the SSL in their OData tab?
Yeah, they have enabled the SSL, and I think all the property they are set.
Okay, and you can always create a different service for the same database with Windows credential and check, is it, because if it is credential one, as you're saying, it might it might not be an error when you're trying with the Windows authentication, right? So create a separate service on their environment where the credential type is Windows and see, does that fix your problem? If that fixes your problem, then it's a credential one issue. If it doesn't fix the issue, then as Sandeep is saying, maybe it's a filter set that is applied on the URL that you're trying to consume. Because there are two ways to create OData URL, right? You can directly come here and create a new web service, or there is a assisted setup where you can also filter out records, and then it generates the URL for you automatically. And if there is anything other than this, which is the server name, the port number, the URL, OData v4, company name, and the web service name, if there is anything after that, which is fields or filter, as Sandeep was saying, maybe try eliminating them also.
One thing I would like to inform you that there's on the server they have bind something, so it is like his website name, like www, or let's server name is bind to that name, not a IP or something, or not a local host.
That's okay. That's not
any difference.
Yeah, that doesn't make any difference. Server name is very common. That's not a local host or a binding is not important, because if I have to access the same URL outside that server, I'll need to have a named server name. Yeah.
Saurabh, another question around web services.
Go ahead.
If we have to insert a record header and line, and then also post the data, and we have to use JSON format for getting the input, what's the best way?
APIs.
Web APIs. With deep insert, we can do the lines as well. But how do we call the posting?
So there is something called as bounded action that you can also define on your API pages. And bounded actions are like functions that you have written. And I'm pretty sure AJ have a blog about bounded action. And I'm not sure about the video.
I've read it. Now the question around this is, when the source system is sending me the data, does he has to take two actions of sending a data and then calling the function, or will it be done in one go?
No, so he will send the data, and you will have the unique, you can get the unique ID of that record, right? based on the ID, that system ID that is generated for each record. And then based on that ID, you can do another call to post it
On which trigger?
on the same page, because you will add the bounded action on the API page. So it'll be like a method on that page. And I can look for it. I can again read AJ article and maybe build a demo around it for the next time, if that makes sense.
That would be great.
Okay, we'll do that. Not a problem. I'll make a note of it. Okay. So Jignesh, you will give it a try and let us know. We'll talk about it otherwise next week.
Yes, I will try and update you.
Okay. Rishikesh, you have something?
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, can you stop the recording?
Okay, not a problem. So thank you all. If you
Thank you.
guys have to leave, that's okay. And then next week we'll try to continue about the upgrade code unit. I'll give you a small scenario based on upgrade toolkit, and maybe that'll help you when you transition from CAN to AN. Okay.
Thank you,
Okay,
Saurabh. It was quite informative.
Thanks.
See what? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. See you next week. Okay, let me stop recording, Rishikesh.
Yes.